Hello, welcome to the video. I consistently criticize spiritual and religious dogma because dogma is what we fabricate when we're uncomfortable with the unknown, when we're fearful of the unknown. Dogma backwards is AmGod because the truest state is one in which we know ourselves to be full of the same creative force that creates worlds.
The divine has been externalized, basically. The great powers of the universe have been put into the hands of a god or a pantheon of gods. Only through worship and adherence to these forces can we be renewed. That's the basic idea. In monotheism, whether it's Christianity, Judaism, or Islam, the divine is in the hands of one all-knowing deity. We are the children who therefore must prove ourselves to this deity. In polytheism, whether it's Hinduism, Shaivism, or any ancient mythology, the divine is spread out to a pantheon, but nevertheless, these gods are the archetypes of the divine, existing in a higher state. Even in the New Age circles, the divine is delegated to the ascended masters, or a light called source, or divine extraterrestrials. The story is the same throughout all these traditions and schools. A figure, or a group of figures, are elevated as, or meant to represent, the divine. These figures can be worshipped symbolically, as the Buddha typically is, or literally, as God the Father, or, say, the Hindu Shiva. But the name of the game in all these traditions is externalize the divine.
Spiritual and religious dogma oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes, has made out this creative force to be something we need to climb up to as if it's outside of ourselves, or as if it requires some specific action or belief system to accept us into its loving arms. We don't have to engage in this falsity. In fact, engaging in any sort of hierarchy like that only leads to a feeling of separation from that which we can experience right here, right now.
Let us go from externalizing the divine to internalizing the divine. Therefore, we can clear up this spiritual confusion that many of us have found ourselves in. We must break down these barriers.
We have felt as if the divine is so distant because all of these doctrines that surround us advocate for this separation and distinction. There is no distinction between you and that which you call God or Spirit. It turns out that there is not one image or earthly construction that can pinpoint the divine, because the divine can't be pinpointed. It is not so hard to look for the divine. Just look in the mirror and look into your own eyes.
These traditions don't maintain that the divine exists purely in the heart, fully alive whether we know it or not, within our experiences. The creator and creation are one in the same. The separation of the two creates much of the turmoil we've seen here. This is one of the greatest secrets. In the plethora of regurgitated perspectives, we become confused about what's true and untrue, battling within mental epitomes and concepts rather than tapping into an essence that is intangible and unnameable.
One may ask, how can anyone have any system of spirituality without a little bit of dogma? By not tying down the divine, that's how. By not solidifying any system. If anything is widely accepted in this matrix, including in the religious and spiritual world, it is incomplete. Therefore, all we have to do is flip around any widely held belief, which is a widely held lie ultimately. So instead of externalizing God, externalizing the divine, let us internalize it. Instead of finding our answers in books, let's find the answers within our hearts. Instead of praying to something else or some other force that we see as above us, why don't we worship and uplift and praise, raise that which is within? That sounds pretty good to me. We can create our own divine scriptures without even having to write them down. And they don't have to consume us. They don't have to escalate into a belief system. The scriptures within our heart can just do as they shall.
Can you look in the mirror and see the fullness of divinity, without labels, without concepts, and without delusion or grandiosity? Everything is designed to bring us back to the heart. But who designed it? You did. It has nothing to do with a God enforcing anything. Like we've stated, in an unaware state, we must go through automated experiences to lead us back to a state of awareness. Everything is designed to bring us back to the heart. One look at the electromagnetic field of the heart tells us that the heart is the seat of the soul. Home is where the heart is. The so-called higher self is not higher than you. It is within you.
Self-respect, I would say, is the only obligation one has if they are to ascend out of 3D. So, let us not be retards and follow the retarded spiritual and religious concepts that are given to us. The so-called New Age, which I have been lumped into, and that's okay. The so-called New Age advocates basically to replace this idea of God with Source, or ancient aliens, or Pleiadian starseed mumbo jumbo bushka You know? Why? What's the point? You see, if you take any inspiration from these dogmas or thought congregations, then go ahead. But let's simplify all of this and not replicate what we've seen in religion. You know, in religion, great ideas and great truths get tucked away into complex stories that usually have this bravado to them, you know. Thousands of years ago, the Great War of the Mahabharata, or Abraham was 90-something years old, this happened. Who cares? You're here right now. That is that. You have a beautiful journey that's unfolding.
This is the point I'm trying to make. When we don't realize that all is happening within, simply expressed without, then we give away our power to some illusion that acts as the regulator of all. But if you yourself regulate, then there's no need or even a want for a regulator. The duality of righteous versus damned, heavenly versus hellish, exists in some form in all traditions. Even in Buddhism, a religion that often claims to have no dualistic views. There are many visualizations of hells and heavens. In the New Age movement, this has been carried over to the dualistic framework of high vibration versus low vibration. You, however, exist at the center of all dualities. These dualities don't hold any reign over you objectively. It is the adherence to an inner dual state that strengthens these projections of right versus wrong, angelic versus demonic, etc. It is much easier to externalize the divine. Oh yes, because again, it takes away a sense of responsibility. If there is no magic in the here and now, in our own consciousness and perception, then we can't fully engage with possibility.
We can let our thoughts and our self-made systems pass us by. They can always come back if they're fitting, but you're here right now, so embrace what is needed right here, right now. And what is needed? It's not another follower to a system that one is handed. What is needed right now is you. You are needed.